normally when I ask for a reshoot, they're like, okay, they put it on the list, and the AD calls. It's a whole rigmarole for scheduling,
right?
To figure out when they're going to do these pickup shots, and so then inevitably, like the AD will come in. They're like, let me see the scene, show them the scene. Then wardrobe needs to see the scene for continuity, and then whatever location or the grips, and everyone has to see the scene because everything has to match. So they're building. And then so I lose 2 days of editing because I'm become a projectionist for all these people, and then they don't even go and shoot it. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay here and I'm gonna
cut.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cut.
The first cut. The first cut. The first cut. The first cut.
I'll just teach you simple cuts to start with.
Welcome back to Craft Truck. In the cut, Colby Parker Jr., picture editor. Rockin'. The dialogue that you have with Mr. Berg, can you call him in the middle of shooting and say, look, I really have a recommendation for you?
Yeah, all the time. Actually, they're calling me a lot and saying, what do we need? And I usually just put together a list. It's really tough because directors, they take it so personally when you're like, you need this shot. And they're like, no, I don't. And it's really...
Why is that? Why do they take it personally? Tell me.
I don't know, because they're fucking narcissistic egomaniacs, I guess.
Right. Right. Well, tell me how you really feel.
I'm like, stop fucking calling me if you don't want to hear what I have to say. It's like, I don't know why I have to fucking battle. I'm not calling you, you're calling me. Right. And they just take it personally. It's like a shot to them as directors. Right. But it's just like,
you're the one.
You got a lot on your mind, dude. Just get this.
Right. You're the one staring at the footage and you're trying to put it together. And...
Yeah. And then, Pete would call and be like, what shot do I need? He'll usually call during lunch, so I get to hear him eating as he's talking to me. He's like, what shot didn't I get? And I'm like, this shot. He's like, I don't need that. And I'm like, all right. And then I'll see it in the dailies later.
Okay, but the way we're talking here, it sounds like there's almost like a brotherly love.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
This is the seventh film I've done with him.
Right, exactly.
We've been together 12 years.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes when I actually get too sensitive, he's just like, come on, it's our shorthand. Don't be such a little baby.
Okay, so let's just talk specifically about the movies because we got to get into them. First movie you did with him was, you were an additional editor on The Rundown, right? Mm-hmm. So is that where you met?
No, I met him, I was sort of the go-to music video guy in New York City. And he had a video that was going to play. When they used to do videos, they used to incorporate movie footage into a song that was on the soundtrack. And this was a Limp Bizkit video, so I cut a Limp Bizkit video for him that was on the Very Bad Things soundtrack.
Uh-huh. Okay, so then you met, and then...
And we got along really well, and we were just sort of kicking it in the city. And then he had a TV show called Wonderland.
Right.
That was on ABC, so he brought me in to cut on that. And then The Rundown happened, and he called me in to do additional editing on that.
Yeah, did you sort of pick up for the editor, to pick up the pieces at the end and carry it on, or were you there the whole time? Was it?
After filming started, he brought me in, which I really appreciate. I know the studio is always like, who the fuck is this guy, cutting music videos, and he really believed in me. And so he just came in to they just need a second editor. The way Pete works is he's very stream of conscious, so he looks at a cut. He said, when he looked at the rundown, or anytime he does a first cut, he sees the editor's cut, he goes in the parking lot and pukes. Because it's just so stressful. And so he just brought me on. There was a really good editor, Richard Pearson, on that, who, for the most part had everything under control, but I was brought in to kind of spice up some scenes and just support. It's just, the way Pete works.
Did
he
you
needs
ever
more
bring a
than one.
bucket out to the parking lot for him to puke into, or was that?
You know, an editor's job is just to really calm him down. It's just like
Right.
respect the process. It takes time.
Yeah.
You know, no one
Yeah.
can read your mind. What do you want? And let's just get into it.
Now the rundown is, to me, it's a phenomenal little action movie. Well, not little. It's a phenomenal sort of canon action movie. Like, you know, were there specific scenes that you were just given and that you cut up yourself?
The first thing I had was this tumble sequence where The Rock and Sean William Scott,
Hanging upside down, or
well, they jump out of a Jeep and then they go down a hill.
oh right, yeah.
So there was sort of a mandate to make it better than a scene that was in Swordfish that was sort of similar to it. So
That was the network, the executive note.
that was Pete's note.
Make it better than this scene in Swordfish.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was called Tumble.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, in our new film, there's another Tumble sequence, which definitely tops them both. But so yeah, I had to do that. And then there was a scene where he's swinging with the monkeys.
Yeah.
And so those are my first two scenes to sort of spice those up.
Those
a
are
bit.
fun scenes, actually.
Yeah.
Now, what's in both those scenes? I mean, it's kind of like it's impact. I mean, I don't know what the terminology is. You're the cutter, but you're basically having to try and keep the story moving while you're physically hitting the audience with these hits that the characters are taking. Is there a key to it, or is it just?
I wish it was more analytical than that. It's more or less just Pete being like, "This has got to be, and it's got to be on." That's sort of the direction. Yeah, I learned a lot from Pete. I didn't realize, you know, it's sort of the Bourne editing, but there's just so much shoe leather or fat, and he's really taught me how to you know, cut on like the hits and really to advance the action and make things move. You know, I sort of have always been like, okay, well, I can't have this hit if I don't see where, you know, it's coming from, and you know, I've learned.
And he's
from,
like, no.
He's just more, you know, it's more pacing, so you could have. You know, if you have two quick hits, then you kind of want to be a little bit more languid and let it play. It's just about timing. So it's boom, boom, you know, boom, 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 boom. And so...
a rhythm thing.
Yeah, exactly, rhythm. So he just taught me how to, you know, work with rhythms and all that.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about The Kingdom, okay? I think this is like a film that in the hands of another director would have become really shitty. But in the hands of Peter Berg is quite a good film. It's so taut. You know, it starts off with this double hit of, I think there's a bomb like a suicide bomb followed by a bigger bomb. And it's like this, it sort of outsmarts the audience a little bit. Was there a trick? Was it tricky to get through the first act? Because the first act of this movie is like, bam, you're into the movie, and Jason Bateman and I think Jennifer Garner and the team are there in Saudi.
No, we when we cut that, the only thing I kind of remember is that it was in and out of the film a million times.
The opening sequence.
Yeah, because it's pretty violent, and then the idea is it's the secondary responders that they want to bomb as well. That's why the bomb is eventually, spoiler, in the ambulance.
Right.
And so, I mean, right before the bomb goes off, we would cut to a kid, and we had kids getting blown up, and we had mothers grabbing. And so it was just a fine line of how violent and how disturbing the scene could be. So there was definitely about 400 different incarnations of that scene, taking out a shot of the kid, putting the shot of the kid back in, losing the secondary bomb. It was, so it was easy to cut. It was just getting frustrating, just going in circles, trying to find, you know, the right tone for the scene that wasn't too disturbing.
The third act of that has a great little trick in it. I mean, typically in a third act, one of the things that a story structure will do is bring back a monster, but because the audience is already familiar with how the monster works, everything just gets accelerated. You know, whether it's alien or it's whatever it is. Yeah. In this movie, I'm going by memory, but I think it's tripped off by by Bateman getting absconded with. And so now the audience, the team, everyone knows they've got an hour before he's decapitated on film. Was there a pressure, was there a cognizant pressure to tighten that third act, like just ram through it, or was it like, did you have other variations of it where it was longer?
Yeah, you know, the first cut is always, with Pete, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So if the scene plays really well and it's super tight, he'll be like, oh, we can get more in. And then if there's too much, he's like, it's too long, because he has ADD as well. So it's basically, all those scenes come together by troubleshooting it every way possible until it's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of intercutting in his films, because the Jennifer Garner thing is happening as well at the same time. So that was the thing, just finding the right tone of cutting in between Jen Garner fighting the guy who she eventually stabs in the nuts, I believe.
Yeah.
And Bateman. And so that was another thing that came in and out 100 times, was the stabbing the guy in the groin. It was like, is it too violent? You know, but we need a big cheer moment here. And eventually we got the cheer moment.
You probably liked watching the guy get stabbed in the nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Friday Night Lights had this wonderful sort of pensive quality to it.